Welcome to the coolest stuff on the planet.
Welcome to the coolest stuff on the planet. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Kathryn.
And Kathryn, we have crisscrossed North America all summer, and we've hit several spots in the West. And that's where we're headed again today, to an awesome spot, thanks to a suggestion from my friend Nathan. Now, he has been on his own epic road trip all across the United States for more than a year. So
wow.
We got to give a big shout out to Nathan. Thanks for this awesome suggestion.
Yeah, and I'd love to talk to him someday, because that just sounds so cool to be traveling across the U.S. for a whole year.
All by himself, too. So
That's really good. Today we're visiting the Canyon de Chelly National Monument in Arizona. And that is spelled Chelly, C-H-E-L-L-Y, but it's pronounced Shea. And it's massive. It's about 84,000 acres within the Navajo Nation. And even though the canyons are less than 1,000 feet deep, they really remind you of the Grand Canyon. They have those beautiful rock formations painted red and gold.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And, civilizations have lived here for thousands of years, starting with the ancient Pueblo, who thrived here until about the 14th century. They were followed by the Hopi and eventually the Navajo. And today, about 40 Navajo families still actually live in the park. So the park's just full of history and hundreds of archaeological sites you can actually visit.
And that's right. President Herbert Hoover declared the area a national monument in 1931. And now the National Park Service and the Navajo Nation, they work together to preserve it. But because the land belongs to the Navajo, you have to hire a Navajo guide if you want to hike along all but one of the trails. But that's not really a bad thing, because you can learn a lot about the history and the culture of the Navajo on this guided tour.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a bonus, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, who better to give you a tour than a Navajo?
That's right.
So, but you can also take a self-guided tour, and the best way to do that is along two scenic drives, and one is the South Rim Drive, and the other is the North Rim Drive.
Who would have thought that?
Yeah.
Both drives take about 2 to 3 hours each, and they each have their own benefits. If you don't have a lot of time, you probably want to do the South Rim Drive because it's got these awesome views. But if you're more into history, you'll probably like the North Rim Drive, because that overlooks the most archaeological sites.
Yeah, and that's where we're going to start, and that's on the North Rim Drive at Antelope House Overlook. And here you take just a short walk to the ruins, and you can see massive cliff walls with antelope paintings that date back to about the 1830s. Archaeologists also discovered an ancient tomb back around 1920, and then they also found the remains of a pit house that dates back to about 693 AD.
Yeah, and the tomb is empty now, but it used to have the body of a man wrapped in a blanket of golden eagle feathers, and he was buried with cornmeal, beans, and other things that he would need on his journey to his next life.
Of course.
Yeah, and they found 2 other mummies nearby in burial urns below the ruins of a giant amphitheater. And I did read that the Navajo Indians tended to bury their dead really quickly, so the experts think that these mummies were from a previous civilization when the Pueblo Indians were there.
Another stop you definitely want to make on the North Rim Drive is at Massacre Cave Overlook. And this is where a Spanish military expedition killed more than 115 Navajo in 1805. And this group of Navajo men trying to escape, they actually scaled about 1,000-foot cliff wall to this overhang.
Yeah.
And when the troops reached the rim above the overhang, they actually shot down and were still able to kill these Navajo men.
That's really sad.
Very tragic story.
Yes, it was. Now we're going to talk about the South Rim Drive, and the first stop that you definitely want to make is at the White House Overlook. And this is where you can pick up the only public trail in the park, and that's going to take you to that 80-room White House ruins, which is the largest site in the canyon. Now, the name comes from the original white plaster that was on the walls.
Yeah, and archaeologists think that as many as maybe 12 different Pueblo families lived in this structure between the years of 1040 and 1275. And you'll also be able to see several petroglyphs, which are those rock engravings, and those are above the ruins. And the Pueblo artists would actually carve into the black streaks on the sandstone walls to create these engravings. And that black color is caused when the water seeps from the walls and reacts with the iron on the sandstone. So they were actually pretty ingenious in how they created those engravings.
Yeah, they used to call that stuff desert varnish.
Exactly.
Yeah. And our final stop is the one with the best views of all, and that's the Spider Rock Overlook. And from there, you can see where the cliffs of the Canyon de Chelly and the Monument Canyon meet, and those 2 massive pinnacles known as Spider Rock and Speaking Rock.
Spider Rock is actually where a Navajo goddess named Spider Woman apparently lives.
Spider-Man's wife?
Actually, no, she's not Spider-Man's wife, but she is apparently very kind, but she also has a very dark side. And according to the legend, she doesn't like naughty children.
Well, who does?
Well, not many people, but when Speaking Rock reports about a child's bad behavior to Spider Woman, she catches and eats them. And
Whoa.
supposedly you can see the sun-bleached bones of these children on top of the Spider Rock pinnacle. So
I better keep my distance.
that's right, and keep your naughty children away from Spider Rock and Spider Woman.
That's right. Well, that wraps up our visit to the Canyon de Chelly. And
Yes.
if you have any naughty children that you'd like to get rid of,
Yes, let us know. We'll tell Spider Woman about them.
and we'll have more information on this on our blog, on Facebook, on Twitter, and we'll have all those addresses at the end of the podcast.
As always, and we'll see you next time on The Coolest Stuff on the Planet.
For more on this and thousands of other topics, visit howstuffworks.com.